Monday, May 20, in the Holy of Holies. Read Leviticus chapter 16, verses 21 and 29 to 34, Leviticus 23, verses 26 to 32, and Hebrews 9, 23 to 28. Why was the Day of Atonement so important in ancient Israel? Leviticus 16:21. He used to lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sins, and put them on the goat's head. He shall send the goat away into the wilderness in the care of someone appointed for the task. And then verse 29 onwards. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you. On the 10th day of the 7th month you must deny yourselves and not do any work, whether native-born or a foreigner residing among you, because on this day atonement will be made for you to cleanse you. Then, before the Lord, you will be clean from all your sins. It is a day of Sabbath rest, and you must deny yourselves. It is a lasting ordinance. The priest who is anointed and ordained to succeed his father as high priest is to make atonement. He is to put on the sacred linen garments and make atonement for the most holy place, for the tent of meeting and the altar, and for the priests and all the members of the community. This is to be a lasting ordinance for you. Atonement is to be made once a year for all the sins of the Israelites. And it was done as the Lord commanded Moses. Then Leviticus 23, beginning at verse 26. The Lord said to Moses, the 10th day of this 7th month is the Day of Atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves and present a food offering to the Lord. Do not do any work on that day, because it is the Day of Atonement, when atonement is made for you before the Lord your God. Those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. I will destroy from among their people anyone who does any work on that day. You shall do no work at all. This is to be a lasting ordinance for the generations to come, wherever you live. It is a day of Sabbath rest for you, and you must deny yourselves. From the evening of the 9th day of the month until the following evening, you are to observe your Sabbath. And then Hebrews 9, beginning at verse 23. It was necessary then for the copies of the heavenly things to be purified with these sacrifices, but the heavenly things themselves with better sacrifices than these. For Christ did not enter a sanctuary made with human hands that was only a copy of the true one. He entered heaven itself, now to appear for us in God's presence. Nor did he enter heaven to offer himself again and again, the way the high priest enters the most holy place every year with blood that is not his own. Otherwise, Christ would have had to suffer many times since the creation of the world. But he has appeared once for all at the culmination of the ages to do away with sin by the sacrifice of himself. Just as people are destined to die once, and after that to face judgment, so Christ was sacrificed once, to take away the sins of many. And he will appear a second time, not to bear sin, but to bring salvation to those who are waiting for him. The priests ministered every day of the year, but on the Day of Atonement, called Yom Kippur in Hebrew, the eyes of all Israel turned toward the sanctuary. Leviticus 16 and 23 give explicit instructions for the Day of Atonement. All regular activity ceased. Everyone fasted. While the high priest entered the presence of God for them in the most holy place, the people examined their hearts. They sought God in humility and heartfelt confession. Anyone who was not afflicted by the Day of Atonement would be cut off, no longer part of the chosen people, as we read in Leviticus 23:27, the 10th day of this 7th month is the Day of Atonement. Hold a sacred assembly and deny yourselves and present a food offering to the Lord. In verse 29, those who do not deny themselves on that day must be cut off from their people. On the Day of Atonement, the high priest took the blood of the Lord's goat into the sanctuary, and after sprinkling it on the mercy seat, applied the blood to the horns of the golden altar and of the brazen altar, completely cleansing the entire sanctuary. When he had made an end of reconciling, the high priest placed his hands on the live goat and confessed Israel's sins. Then it was led into the wilderness to be separated from the camp forever, as we read in Leviticus 16:20-22. When Aaron had finished making atonement for the most holy place, the tent of meeting, and the altar, he shall bring forward the live goat. He is to lay both hands on the head of the live goat and confess over it all the wickedness and rebellion of the Israelites, all their sins, and put them on the goat's head. He shall send the goat away into the wilderness in the care of someone appointed for the task. The goat will carry on itself all their sins to a remote place, and the man shall release it in the wilderness. The blood was transferred into the sanctuary during the daily services, showing the recording of sin, as we read in Jeremiah 17:1. Judah's sin is engraved with an iron tool, inscribed with a flint point on the tablets of their hearts and on the horns of their altars. And God's taking responsibility for its ultimate disposition. Now, on the Day of Atonement, it was transferred out of the sanctuary and placed on the head of the scapegoat Azazel, representing Satan and revealing his ultimate responsibility for the sin problem. This goat was led far into the wilderness so that at the close of the Day of Atonement, God had a clean sanctuary and a clean people. In the heavenly sanctuary, Christ ministers for us, first in the holy place and now in the most holy place since 1844 at the end of 2,300 days. We will get through this great judgment because of Jesus, our substitute. As Ellen White said in Desire of Ages, page 25, we are justified by his righteousness in which we had no share. End of quote. As a result of this righteousness, credited or imputed to us, we afflict our souls, which is a turning away from sin. That means we have not come to a comfortable acceptance of evil, nor are we excusing or clinging to cherished sins. Instead, we are growing in grace and living a life of holiness. And so to finish today, what is the significance of the Day of Atonement in our lives today? Why should it make a difference in how we live? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. And you can listen and watch at the same time on YouTube. Remember, God is always faithful.